Coach, thanks for joining me today on SimpleCoach to Coach for this interview. Appreciate you taking the time. Like I call my office, Cortland South. Thanks for joining me today.
Love it. Thanks for having me. Office looks great.
I need more. Yeah. Hey, just give me a sense as to how your season went. Like how you think your season went before I start queuing you up on anything.
So let's see. I'm a pragmatist at heart. So, getting to the round of Sweet 16 again is great. It's a good check mark for us. We've been 5 times in the last 8 years, something like that. So, that's kind of our metric that, our guys all have that internal goal of, are we going to get there? And we got there, which is good at the end. Definitely some ups and downs along the way. We had a new group, very new group. The year before, we had a really talented group that had been together for a long time. Tons of seniors, tons of fifth-year kids that we graduated. So this year was really, it was a blank slate in a lot of ways. Maybe as much as 3 consistent starters from the year before to this year. So I think we probably had to do our best coaching this year in a lot of ways of just bringing that group together. So certainly without, ups and downs and trials and tribulations. But I think in the end, we finally got, to a point that we were happy with where we got to. We were proud of kind of how we were playing at the very end. Certainly some bumps in the road, but, by the end of the year, I think we got to where we wanted to be.
That's what I noticed. Something happened at some point, like I said, end of September, October-ish, where you suddenly watching you play was like, wow, there's something different. There's a before and after. All right, so let me ask you, because how do you think your coaching was, right? Like you mentioned, you probably had to do your best coaching. So, how do you think it went from that perspective?
Yeah, I'm really proud of this past year of, not only me kind of growing and evolving as a coach, but certainly our staff were incredible. We had a new assistant coach this year, so add that to the mix of a lot of new players, which in a lot of regards helped because a lot of things felt new. So that was a good thing. A lot of fresh ideas. And our new assistant, his name's Colby. He was a rock star. He's really, really good. I think we did really good work this year, from taking a team that maybe, they certainly were not the team in August that they were in November. So,
very clear.
From that point in and of itself, we're pretty proud of that. Certainly there's things that you look back and you want to do different, but, I think this year was some of our best work.
Mm-hmm. Hey, did anything surprise you?
A lot of things surprised me.
Throughout the season, did the team, did that turnaround surprise you, or were you thinking at some point this is going to be a tough slog to get to the end of the season?
No. So I think the mindset that we were in the front half of that season, our non-conference, we just had such a gauntlet.
Oh my gosh.
So, from a win-loss perspective, we were very up and down, but when you throw into the fact that, you got to play teams like St. Lawrence and Johns Hopkins and Rowan, and I'm missing the other probably 4 or 5 that were in that same category, Rochester. Our first 7 games were just you flip a coin at them and you hope you get 4 out of 3 or something like that. So
Mary Washington,
yeah, exactly.
That one, but that's not an easy game.
No. So to all the teams that I'm forgetting right now, I apologize, but every one of our non-conference this year, I felt Hobart, is a tough out. It's never an easy game. It's always a good program. So anyways, it seemed like up and down, but we tried to keep kind of an even keel of, look, you're comparing yourself to teams that are going to be, likely in the NCAA tournament. A lot of them in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. So take it with a grain of salt, understand kind of what that means for us and all that. So we kind of use that to just build and say, all right, this is who we want to be in conference, right? Not that the games get any easier, but you want to use the really hard tests to get better. And I felt like we did that. We certainly did that. I think down the stretch that helped when you run into teams like, F&M and you're down 2-0. It's a really good
What a
team,
great game.
and you don't buckle and you come out in the second half and you find a way. So I think the adversity early on probably helped us down the stretch, especially with a young group that, you need belief, right? And if all you do is win against easier teams in the front half, eventually when it gets hard, you actually don't have that belief. But I think it was good for us.
I think that Franklin and Marshall game was outstanding by you guys. The second half I just thought was, and even the OTs I thought were just, you guys, it was different, right? It was different
Yep.
team, right? Like, and you can't, I always wonder what those trigger points are. And it's like you go into halftime, it's almost like, okay, reassess and just get one. And, I know the speeches, right? But they executed in there. It was a remarkable game.
Yeah, well, and I think like the speeches thing, everybody's got speeches, but
Yeah.
your players have to actually believe, right?
Yeah.
If they don't actually
Yeah,
believe, your
yeah.
speeches are speeches, and nothing's going to
words.
change.
Yeah. Here he goes again.
Right. So it's actually like I don't think it's much coaching at all. Like
Yeah.
in that moment, it's more of just your body of work for the last 3 months, and
Yeah.
they had it in them to know that they could come back, right? Like that was a reality. So
Just to ask you, the Sunniac, how do you think that played out? Just the season in general, were the teams as good as you thought they were going to be? I know you lost to Brockport in the semis of the tournament, but Oneonta was like, they were good. I give them that; they were really good. So I'm just curious, what were your thoughts on the Sunniac and how things played out?
I think everybody was up. Like there wasn't some years there's kind of a clear divide, right? Like a clear 1 through 10, and games kind of go how you think they're going to go. Mm-hmm. This year I felt like there wasn't much of that at all.
Yeah.
So, I think the bottom of the conference was way up this year. They were stronger. Even you look at teams like Potsdam, right? That perennially kind of struggles against the top of the list, but tied the top of the table. They tied us. They tied Oneonta. They tied St. Lawrence. They had an unbelievable season. They were way up. Adam's done an amazing job there. Credit to Brockport, right? Brockport was really good this year. They were a hard out. So, I think the whole conference was up for sure. Plattsburgh, another one, they had this relentless drive, if you didn't actually finish a game out, which we didn't, they were going to get you. They just had this, rambunctious spirit about them that was just true competitors. So, the whole conference was up.
Hey, I have to ask, are you your own podcaster? Because you got the earphones and you got the mic. I'm impressed with the mic there.
I'm not, no, but I've been on a couple where our offices sometimes get loud.
It makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does, I guess. Yeah. So I've been on a couple where they, the production at the end, they're I don't know, it kind of sucked. So I ended up getting a microphone and headphones.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, feel free, follow me as the ultimate in YouTube influencers. The mic is a huge different. Anyhow, all right, so back to it. I had to notice. I'm the mic is right there. I'm like, holy smokes, that's so cool. All right, so season under your belt. Overtimes. You had 3 Plattsburgh, something like that. Plattsburgh and Potsdam. F&M went to PKs, which is an outstanding. Anyone who wants, to me, an example of great Division III soccer, that would be a game that I would point them to. So you go to PKs in the tournament. F&M, and then you lost the other game in the tournament. You lost to Stevenson regular. So let me ask you, do you think the lack of overtimes in the regular season was a net positive, net negative? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't like it. There was a lot more ties this year than normal. All the statistics that came out.
Yeah.
I myself, being a pragmatist, I just hate ties in general.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me that we're going to spend money, get on a bus, feed a whole
Yeah.
team, like, spend two
Yeah.
days and then end it just being like, well, we're the same. Like, it just doesn't equate in my brain. I don't know why we do it. It's a soccer thing. I get it, but I'm
Yeah.
not a purist. So,
Yeah.
creating a system that has more ties just to
Yeah.
me is frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to look at everybody across the country and have zero ties, right? Like, just how many
Yeah.
did you
Yeah.
win? How many did you lose?
Lose.
I think they can. I think the NCAA's got to come up with maybe just kind of tweak their formulas a little. It doesn't have to be a massive overhaul, but
Mm.
to account for more ties.
Yeah.
We're the only or maybe one of the only sports that has it. So, to have some of the same SOS and figures as sports that don't have ties, I think
Yeah.
muddies the water a little bit, puts a lot more
Yeah.
teams on the bubble.
Yeah.
I don't know if, a home tie versus an away tie, I don't know if they, a point 0.4, 0.6.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people out there that are much more qualified than me to create these things, but someone should create something that, just at least takes into account the more ties.
Yeah. Yeah. I was saying, I forget who I was talking to. It's so many, and everything sort of morphs into one. Like at some point, they have to put a value to a tie, right? Because you put a value to a win, you put a value to a loss, right? If you lose a game that you shouldn't lose, you're more heavily penalized than if you lost to somebody really good ranked. There's got to be a value to a tie, so there's got to be better ties and there's got to be worse ties. And what does that look like? Because you're right. Because
Yeah.
at some point, like if you're trying to make everybody look equal, are you a better team than a team that went 15-3?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That's the big thing. So.
And even if, ties are a 0.5 right now, I don't know, make them a 0.4. Might get
Yeah.
penalized. Like, make teams kind of come out of their shell and go for a win maybe a little bit more. I don't know. But I
That's
think
actually not a bad thing either, right? Because now you're forcing the issue. Like we want a winner. We're not going to give you overtime,
Yep.
but we want a winner. Yeah.
And, it's not a loss, right? Like, it is a result on a lot of fronts, especially if you're the team, the lesser of the two teams, right? And you fight and you tie a powerhouse. Like, good on you. It's not a loss, but I don't know if it's a 0.5 in my eyes.
Yeah.
It should feel more like a loss than a
Yeah.
win, I think, in my book.
Yeah. Would you go back to having OTs? I would gather, just by the way you're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind OT. Yeah, I don't mind them. I mean, it's nice in a lot of regards, like you can kind of plan on what time you're going to get home for your kids and your family and pick up times. And, our kids can plan a little bit more of what time they're going to be done with things. But I don't know.
Yeah.
In the end, I like having that chance to go at it again and really try and figure out who's the top dog in the game.
Yeah. Well, too, it's like a new game, right? Like it's like the start of a 0-0 game again, right? Like it's not. Anyhow.
And we talk about experience, like, I don't know, experience for the athletes.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's better moments than overtime goal game winners, right? Where like the whole team runs out and celebrates. Like that's massive. So you just kind of take away all of those big time moments.
Yeah.
And I understand, there's a losing half to that. Those moments equally suck just as much when you lose in overtime. But still, I mean, you're kind of taking some of that like just passion out of it. That you get the game winner in overtime. Those kids are going to remember that for the rest of their lives. Especially in big games. So.
I've been saying like I get why the lack of the no overtimes, right? Player load and all that stuff. But to me, that was a solution to a problem that didn't necessarily exist. I didn't think OTs were as burdensome as they made it out, or as you would think. I think I'm a big proponent of just extend the season out, right? Give the OTs back, but extend the season out so you have more rest time for your athletes. I think that would make
come in a
lot
week
more
earlier.
sense. Correct.
Come in a week earlier, go a week later.
Yeah, I think that
it's a little bit more money, but
sense.
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot more sense than, hey, we're not going to do OTs. Well, then you should, if that's a big deal, then you should minimize. You're only allowed 30 minutes of warm up instead of an hour or whatever.
Right.
That you might as well just throw that in there too, because it doesn't make much sense beyond that. Do you think, or did other coaches that you played, do you think that they were decisions made in later parts of the game where you were like, we're going for a tie, or we're not going to jeopardize? Is that?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a specific example that I can think of, but I mean, it would make sense that, if you're holding on to a game, right, and like you're just, hey, let's just try and get through this with a tie, your decisions are going to be different, right?
Yeah.
Likewise, if you feel like, good God, I can't believe we're about to tie this, we got to really go for it, then your decisions change too when you know you don't have that extra 20 minutes. So I think decisions change for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, it's another tool, decision process, right? It's like no different than who do you put in for, I need somebody to give somebody a blow. Like, who's that person going to be? Are they going to have an impact? And it's the same thing. So,
yep.
They just voted on that extending the spring. Any thoughts on that? Does that make things better for you think? Or
I love it. Yeah.
More time.
I mean, I've literally never met a Division III coach in my life that wanted to abuse players in the spring, right? Or like overuse them. I just don't think it happens. Yeah. What I do think is, it gets us around our kids more, which for us in our environment, positive messaging, checking in with them, making sure they're doing all right, how our class is going. I mean, you get the human to human value way more. I mean, yeah, practicing is practicing, but I think you just miss out on all the human connection that the kids need. I think coaches need, to just take complete time off and hope kids stop by your office and check in with you. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Just, I think more is better, and trending in that direction is a good thing. I mean, they have those, you can have leadership meetings with your kids, kind of once a week, and that's been good, but I think it's trending in the right direction by giving more in the spring. I really do.
I mean, we talked the first time we talked. You talked a lot about the discipline of the team, of your program, and sort of what you tried to instill. I would think that just helps in that regard, right? Like like you said, checking in on them, how they're doing. Are you doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing, or you're expected to be doing, right?
For sure.
Otherwise, yeah.
Yep. Well, and it's like, I mean, even the expectations you have in your program and the rules that you have and, those discipline pieces that you want to instill. I mean, it's the reason people speed in their car going way above the speed limit, right? Is because most of the time you're not going to get caught. Yeah. And so it's no different with college kids, right? Like the more they're around, the people that are holding them accountable, the better that they're going to act and the better habits they're going to have, and et cetera. So, I just think it's a net positive 100%.
Yeah. Now, if they just did it to the fall, that would be even better, right? Like, like that would be fantastic. All right, so you went 13-6-3. Like I mentioned, you lost to Brockport in the semis of the Sunniac after you beat them 4-1 a week earlier. Like, was there a difference between the? Obviously, there was a difference, but was there a difference in mentality? Why do you explain the different? How do you explain the 4-1 win and then come back a week later? And was it Brockport just had a great game plan?
Well, I knew in that first game, every goal that we scored beyond 2-1, I'm like, well, you're just making it harder for yourselves a week from now, right? Like if we have to play them. No one likes to, and it was their senior day that we had a great day at their place.
Oh my God!
So, I mean, you're just stirring the pot, right? You're shaking the beehive with every goal that you score, and we played great. So credit to our guys, like we played great in the game. But you just know that everyone that goes in is just, you're gonna kind of have to pay for that somewhere down the line. And they came back. Their pot was stirred. They were up for it and rambunctious and
angry.
And their goalkeeper had an unbelievable day on the second game. Yeah. He was a rock star in the game. I felt like, we probably had enough chances to win it early on and at least kind of make the two games look similar. But he kept them in it. He had some really big time saves. Yeah. And then it's the same thing, right? Like the longer the game goes on, the more frustrated we get because we think, it should have been how it was a week ago. And you just get these immature minds out there that think it should go one way and it's not, and so frustration grows. which means, momentum usually goes the other way the more frustrated a team gets. So, it kind of slipped away from us. And I mean, I still think, if we don't concede in the last few seconds, I mean, we were knocking on the door, I felt like all 90 minutes.
Yeah.
But, a couple of mistakes, a couple of letdowns at the end, and that's the game. That's life, right?
Game. Yeah, that is the game.
Yeah.
That is definitely the game. All right, so you got to the NCAAs. I mean, you had an outstanding performance like through the NCAAs, and then you lost to Stevens 2-1. But I thought you were in it to win it there. I was expecting you guys to come out ahead watching that game. What were your thoughts about that game? How you guys did in the NCAAs and where you ended up?
I thought we were really good in the NCAA tournament. I thought we were playing our best stuff at the end, which is where you want to be as a coach.
Yeah.
I did think we were really in that Stevens game for sure. I think we matched up well with them. Not to discredit them. I mean, they were very, very good this year, and they showed that. But I think we were also very good right at the end. And, I think some of our strengths matched up with some of their weaknesses, but also vice versa. So it was kind of who was going to bend and break first.
Yeah.
We missed a chance in the first half, one-on-one with the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper makes a save. Yeah. It probably comes back to haunt us a little bit.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, we hit the crossbar in the second half when it was 1-1 that I think completely turns it. That was maybe 15 minutes left. And then they come down, 5 minutes or so, I forget how much time, and score the game winner. And, we kind of have a kid duck out of the way and goalkeeper doesn't go for it. But, I think we could have done more in the end to win the game. I still think it was there for the taking. But, again, that's soccer, right? Like that's how it goes sometimes.
And especially at that level, right? Like once you're there, like it does come down to a guy moving at, like you said, 6 inches to the right when he should have stood up straight. That could be the difference in the game because they're so good. And Stevens, I give all the credit in the world. They were good.
Oh, for sure.
They were really, really good, right? Like,
yep. And they were good on some of the things that, had been our weaknesses all year. Mm-hmm. Closing down space on the top of the box was kind of one of our weaknesses. We got caught against St. Lawrence with that. We got caught against Potsdam with that. Caught against Plattsburgh with that. Brockport at the end.
Just being slow to step to the ball?
Yeah, slow to kind of clear our lines and to step out and block shots. And then set pieces. They were really good at set pieces. We knew that we had to be damn near perfect defending set pieces with that one kid. I mean, he was incredible in the air. And he caught us. We lost our mark, and he caught us with one. So
it was another great example of a great Division III game, I thought. You seem to be in a lot of those.
We try to be.
Yeah. Now you just got to do it again next year, and we can start.
No pressure.
No pressure. None whatsoever. Yeah, I expect you to get farther though this time. Hey,
my boss does too. So
yeah. Just remember this is recorded, so now you can be like, "Look, you said that you were going."
Exactly.
And you failed. All right, so let me ask just a couple more questions before you wrap up. But what sort of plans do you envision your spring to be like? What are the things that you focus in on? I ask that because as of late, I've been very. I've come to put a lot of thought into the non-traditional season, the spring, and the value it is for teams. So I really would welcome your thoughts on what you guys do and what you plan to do.
Yeah, pretty comprehensive approach in our non-traditional. So first and foremost is our culture, and kind of I think our pillars of culture are trust, authenticity. Like that's the Brené Brown stuff of kind of breaking down those barriers and giving more of yourself to the group, and then trusting that the group is going to hold on to that in a safe fashion. So a lot of that type of stuff, which with males I think is hard. Accountability is probably like our cornerstone. And so just absolutely nailing them with the discipline stuff and who we want to be and not bending, on some of our values and the type of people that we want to be. the work that we want to put in. We want to just put in honest work, that mirror test at the end of the day. We're working a lot right now. We just started the semester. We just had some first meetings with classes to kickstart them into the season of, I would say peer-to-peer accountability between, this period of time between now and when we can start training. So yeah, that's a big focus, is culture and just who we are as people. We're taking the group to Italy over spring break.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're really looking forward to that. That's going to be cool.
I got a hat.
We need a chaperone. You're in. You're in.
I'll do live podcasts every day. I promise you. I'll just put them on.
You're our media director, our influencer, resident influencer.
Yeah.
But we're really looking forward to that. That's going to be really cool. It's the first time that I'm going to take a team overseas. So
really,
we're going with our women's team. So we're all traveling together. For those that don't know, the coach of our women's team is my wife. So we're also taking our 3 kids, which will be pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
It'll be neat. So our guys are looking forward to that. And then obviously getting on the field and kind of going after, who we are as players is kind of that third step in our spring, after spring break, and seeing what we can do, kind of building some foundational blocks.
Where in Italy are you going, if I may ask?
We're going to fly into Milan, and then we go to Florence, Tuscany. We're going to hike the Cinque Terre, that 5 towns hike. Yeah. And then we go north to Lake Como. We're going to hike around Lake Como a little bit. And let's see, we're going to a make your own pasta and wine type of, farm villa that the guys can make their own pasta and whatnot. It's going to be cool.
That'll be fun. Be fun. That'll be interesting, the type of pasta they make. That's all.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Can I? This clearly was not the last couple questions, but what do you? You mentioned that this is the first time you're taking a team overseas. Can I ask why? What was the change in decision? Was it did your administration say, hey, you can now go overseas if you want, or?
No, I've been a young coach, quote unquote, for a long time since I got the job, and so. Taking a team overseas comes with inherent risk and responsibility. And I think we've had teams that certainly could have done that in the past, but it wasn't my focus when I was a young coach. The focus was just kind of, really cleaning up culture and performance metrics and just kind of who we want to be. And all of a sudden I looked up and I blinked and it was I was 10 years in. I was like, oh, jeez, we got to get on some experience pieces here too. We got to get moving. So.
Next phase 2. Come on, phase 2.
I would say really early on, in my career, I was probably 25, 26. And our women's team had went over. They went to Spain. But I knew at that point, I was I don't know if I'm ready, as a coach to just bear that responsibility. I don't know if we had the groups to do it. And then all of a sudden, blink of an eye, 10, 11 years in, I'm we should get back on that.
Get back on that.
Yeah.
It's an awesome, having played over there, it's just awesome. I'll just say it's one of those things where you'll remember forever as a player.
For sure.
It's a remarkable thing. So good on you. All right, promise last question here, and then you can get on with the rest of your day and your podcasting.
No, I'm in no rush. I don't have any podcasts for the rest of the day. Clean slate.
Hey, what does your you have an outstanding, I'll just say generically, you have an outstanding roster. Some of the players on your team and the returners you have an outstanding team. What's your recruiting class look like, and sort of what are the things that you were looking for in this recruiting class?
Yeah, so interesting enough. So we've had a JV team opportunity, bigger roster, whatever you want to call that. So we've had about 45 guys now since COVID. And again, that was our answer to COVID, and rosters growing on both ends, kids staying and freshmen coming in. So this will be the year that we get back down to normal, hopefully about 32 to 35. So, and we only graduate a center back. So, that poses a lot of inherent challenges, right? So we're going to have to chip away from the inside, but we also have to go after recruiting with a much more critical eye and make sure that it's a perfect fit, right? We don't need numbers. We just need very small pieces to fill in,
Yeah.
whether that's from a team setting, a positional setting, a level setting, whatever that might be.
Okay.
So we're careful right now not to, I would say, just recruit talent. We have talent in a lot of places, and recruiting talent that's just going to push guys,
Yeah.
out or whatever, like it's not the right answer for us right now from a numbers standpoint. So we're really specific, going after, we've got 3 freshmen right now that are committed, and, we might be done with freshmen unless, the right piece kind of falls in our lap and just falls our way. We filled that center back role, kid that's graduating. We filled him with a freshman that we think is really good.
Wow.
Not that
That's a big
we're expecting him to come
Yeah,
win
yeah.
games right away.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's certainly, he's got light at the end of his tunnel for sure here. We've got an attacking player coming in that's a freshman that I think just adds a lot of value up top. He's a different type of player than we have. And then we have a goalkeeper coming in that's a freshman. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. If a couple transfers come in that, really push, we've got one transfer from junior college right now that's committed. It kind of fills a hole that we feel like needs more competition internally, amongst ourselves. So right now we're at 4. If we end with 4, I think we're in a good spot.
You're okay. Yeah.
If it goes to 5 or 6 and we find, a couple transfers late, that's okay too.
Last time we spoke, I know you had a couple transfers coming in. Are you the transfer portal everyone talks about? Is that something that you're still actively looking at, participating? I don't know what the right word is, but are you looking at guys to come in to transfer from wherever they might be, Division 1, 2?
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes the transfer portal gets a bad rap a little bit. Soccer's always soccer's always had that one-time transfer waiver, right? So kids have been able to do this forever, at least since I've been going at it. So the rules haven't changed. It's just an online marketplace now. You can see who wants to. So, I think it does give kids that, found themselves in a bad situation, want to change majors, and that school doesn't have it. Yeah. Maybe they were lied to in the recruiting process. Yeah. Well, whatever it is, right? Like they found themselves in a life circumstance that they don't want to be in anymore. It's a better path out. Yeah. Is it too easy and kids will lean on that because it's an easy path? Sure. But that's any time in life, right? Like, and you got to weed those kids out when you're recruiting them and just figure out why they're on the portal.
That's a good point.
But for us, like we recruit any player that's eligible, right? Like just like we would, an overseas kid, an out-of-state kid, an in-state kid. Like if you're eligible to come play, why wouldn't we at least look at you and give you the time of day and see what you're made of? But that doesn't mean that just because you're on the portal and you're coming from Division 1 means you're the right fit either. So.
You're the second or third coach that's mentioned that about when you see a kid on the portal, you want to find out why they're in the portal. Is it because that circumstance is bad and they're not enjoying it, or they just need their different major, like you mentioned, or is it because they're throwing a little bit of a temper tantrum? And he goes, you don't want the temper tantrum kids. You want the legit kids, which I'm sure there are. I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure good percentages are legit. But there are
I would say there's a much higher percentage of legit kids than not.
Yeah,
I mean, I would go as far as like 90-10.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it gets a bad rap maybe from, the few kids that, burn their head coach and burn that school when they really didn't need to. Like, those are the stories you hear. But I mean, for the most part, every kid that we talk to on there, has just legitimate reasons why they want to move on and find a different place. I mean, most of them are just good-hearted, hardworking kids that, found themselves at a school that wasn't what they thought it was, and they want to make a change.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of number of cases where, they think they're all comfortable. Hey, I'm going to go far away from home, and then realize they're far away from home and be like, I'd rather just be closer to my parents. And so, what does that look like? And where? Are there any places near that I could go to and play? I'd be comfortable with that, right? Like, I think that's legit, right?
For sure, yeah. And you get a ton of kids that just take a flyer on the Division 1 experience, right? And just that hope and dream of D1.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, go for it, right? Like it's your
Yeah.
life. You want to take that opportunity and see what you make of it. But then when you get there and you realize like you don't have a light at the end of the tunnel, okay,
Yeah.
well, you tried. And now you
tried.
realize that maybe this level is a better fit for you. Like, who knows? I don't hold that against kids at all. I mean, kids are still 18 to 22. They're trying to figure themselves out just as much as we all are, right? Like, maybe
I'm
more so.
54 trying to figure myself
Yeah,
out.
I know. So, I just give them a bit of grace and just understand that, I mean, the majority of them are just looking for a better home.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's a great point, right? Like, there's something to the freshman experience that could either go really well for you or that cannot, and you never know what those things are. You hope that you've done all this work to go to a school, to be in a program that you're really going to sort of gel into. But man, I've gone into jobs thinking I'm going to gel, and I've been like, I got to find the door because I got to get out of here, right? And within 3 months, being like, yeah, this is not what I expected, and yeah, I think that's legit, right? And then trying to sort of right that ship. You know what? That's fair game, I think. And like you said, I know my son when he's 19 now, 18, even at not, it's like you're like, dude, you need help. Like you need help with decisions, right? Like that's the age, and you allow him to make the mistakes, and then he self-correct, right? Like so, I think that's probably you're right. The portal is that.
And it's natural that, like the value that you bring to the team, if you're the 35th kid on the depth chart, is less than number 2, right? No one wants to be treated differently. But the reality is it's really hard for an 18-year-old to not be valued. And that's not to say that they should get everything, the gates open right when you get there. But I that term of like, if there is no light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like if you are a 4-year bench player and you understand that right away, and you want to play, okay, great. Like you should, I mean, playing should be fun. It's still a game, right? Like we still all want to be on the field and playing.
Well, that's true. Like with my kids, it's always been, I think the most important thing is you play. Like I forget all the other stuff. I'm like, because you don't want to be that guy who's, the last penny in every, pickup game that you're going to play. Like that's not fun. At some point, it's just not fun anymore. And you don't want, like, kicking around ball is supposed to be fun and joyful.
100%.
Right? Like, so you might as well find that experience, and and you'll find your entire college. This was me as a soccer player, right? Like when in college, like when my soccer was going really well, my school was going really well, everything was going really well. When it wasn't going so well, the impact, because you spend so much time in that front end of the school year, like it could have put me on a bad trajectory for the rest of the year, right? Like that was just sort of that's how much of an impact that sport can have, right? So
way more than people think. Yeah, for sure. Like we talk
that's
about
it.
like the 3 pillars, right? Is like academic, social, and athletic. Yeah. And if one of those pieces is really missing, I mean, your life is in chaos, right?
Three-legged stool, right? Like, and you put one isn't working, you lean on the other 2, whether you like it or not, right? And sometimes that is the social. Like suddenly you're giving more social because the other stuff is that. Academics or the athletics just isn't working, right? Like I totally, I'm with you there. I think
males are definitely ego animals, right? Like at that young age, and so if you're not getting your ego fix in the game, how you always have, you're going to go after an ego fix somewhere else, and that's usually social, right? Or that's usually making concessions in the rest of your life, kind of who you are. So
very very true.
I don't have any problems with the transfer portal. I think if you actually just crunch the numbers of success stories of kids that we're in a bad place, we're unhappy, we're like whatever that is, and they found a better place,
good on them.
Good on you. I think it's great.
Like I said, you don't want your college experience to be miserable. Everyone I know who went to college and did, like, it was a great experience, right? Like you want that for any kid coming out after 4 years someplace being like, I loved it at wherever they're at, right?
Yeah, and some of like the horror stories, right? Of like, big time D1, football or basketball, and these like superstars forming super teams at different schools. I mean, that couldn't be further away from D3 soccer, So, I
Yeah.
get that those guys in those world, like, that's a struggle
Yeah.
that those coaches have to put up with. And that's,
Yeah.
that's a new landscape for sure. But that's
Yeah.
not a D3 soccer thing. D3
No.
soccer is just trying to give kids a good home.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, I think it's a difference. There, it's different when you go and I think that's what everybody's thinking, right? They're going from D1 powerhouse to creating another D1 powerhouse. Not necessarily, hey, I'm going D1. I'm going to go down to, I'm going to play D3 instead, or whatever that move ends up being. I think that's probably that move ends up being a lot more realistic, and they're not all going to some powerhouse at that point to, you know, to go to the national championship or something like that. I don't think that's realistic.
For sure.
I think it shortchanges those programs quite a bit if you think that.
Yeah,
Right?
no, for sure. And
You
too,
know?
like, kids that, I mean, the amount of clubs out there right now that are
Yeah.
just pushing kids to go Division One
Oh my
because they can put it on a list. I mean, the system is kind of set up for transferring, right? Like,
yeah.
you've got all these adults around these 17-year-old kids telling them how great they are, and you have to go
Yeah.
D1,
Yeah.
and they're saying, hey, go D1 and just take a chance, right? Make the
Yeah.
roster. And actually, I think when kids transfer, maybe 1 to 3 or whatever, like, they've actually found the right level, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a level that you can play at, you're going to be happy at, you're going to be
Yeah.
successful. Like, you probably should have chose that up front.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
didn't, but whatever, you found your way. I just think there's so many people pushing kids at this D1 or bust.
Yeah.
And if you're a legitimate D1 player, like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's great.
Yeah.
But those kids that are in that wiggle room, that gray area, if you're just pushing them to a level of incompetence at 18,
Yeah.
of course they want to find a different home. So I don't know. There's a lot of systems at play that I think make the transfer portal what it is.
What it
But I
is,
actually,
yeah.
I think it gets a negative connotation, and I don't think it
Yeah.
should.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. That's the first time I heard. Yeah, that's interesting. I totally valid. I will say there is, and I see it. There is a very real. I don't want to say pressure to do that D1, but there is definitely an incentive program
Yeah.
that happens with players at clubs to go D1, and right, like if you, I know where the simple players play. My my kids, I know for a fact kids who were not academy MLS next whatever kids who were ECNL or what have you make a commitment to Division 1 and then suddenly after the news is out that they make that commitment to a Division 1 program, suddenly they're now bumped up to the academy
Hmm.
or whatever the top thing is.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've witnessed that. I've experienced as a high school coach. I've seen that happen, and
Yeah.
it's almost like that's the wrong incentive to give, right?
For sure.
For these kids,
And the kids, I mean, they have Instagram, for Christ's sakes. There's enough incentive for them to put the tagline of their
Yeah,
next school on there and feel
Yeah.
really cool senior year,
Yeah.
right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
senior year is amazing if you can put
Yeah.
those top end schools
Oh,
on it.
totally.
You wear the sweatshirt, like, you're the
Yeah.
man for
Yeah, yeah,
months.
yeah.
But then you get to that next place, and that doesn't mean it's the right fit. Just because it's a dopamine hit,
Yeah.
senior year, doesn't mean it's going to give you a dopamine hit when you're there.
Right? No. That
So-
actually, I know of another kid who did that. Division 1 didn't play at all. Transferred another Division 1, still not playing.
Mhm.
Right? And it's like, and he's good enough where you're like, I would have. I always say to kids that I know, like, I'll recommend you if I think you're good. I'll recommend you to where I think you could play. And he'd be one that I'd call you up and be like, this kid can play. And
Mhm.
but he's just not. He can't play at that level, right? Like I don't think. So anyhow.
And again, I'm not an anti D1. I think kids should follow their
Yeah,
dreams and
This
aspirations.
isn't I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm
it's
not-
more of like a pro.
Yeah.
Here's a system in place when you make the wrong decision at 18, which we all have,
Yeah.
to find a better place. So
Yeah. Hey, all right. So no more. I got more questions for you.
go for it.
All right, so I know you're tight with Coach Toshak at St. Lawrence. Can I ask you about that game? Like, that was a banger of a game. Can you
Yeah.
give me your insights into that game?
Yeah. I mean, he does just such a good job at
He's such a great guy too. I love that guy.
having like their
Yeah,
style, right,
yeah,
that they're going to play.
yep.
And so I don't have as much of that as maybe I should as a coach. We're just kind of like, we're going to try the style that we think is going to work on the day.
Yeah,
And we're like, we want to be adaptable.
yeah,
So like even like this past year, for instance, I mean, we probably deployed 5 different systems. Like we were in a 3-5-2 a lot. We were in a 3-4-3. We were in a 4-3-3. Like literally every system you could name it, we played it at some point in the year. But so they come in with their own style that's like very distinct, and you have to have a plan as to how you're just going to stop them from having the ball the entire game. You know, like
yeah.
they're so good at it. We felt like it was back and forth. You know, it was a really good game. You know, certainly no clear winner.
Yeah.
If you just take all the goals out, you're kind of like, wow, that's a great college soccer game.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, agreed. 100%.
so we felt like we matched them and we did the things that we wanted to do. You know, they came back, right? Which like was a problem for us. It's a new problem to solve. Is, you know, you're up, you've got momentum, you've got emotion, and then you're down, and now you got to try and solve that and kind of recapture the game. We felt like we came back out and recaptured some momentum in the game. We created a couple chances that we thought were great that didn't fall. Their goalkeeper had a big time save, kept him in it. You know, and then at the end of the game, you know, it's all about how many goals you score and how many goals you let in, and they did it better than we did. So, you know, they but you know what they're going to bring to the table, and they do it so well year after year. And it's a team that, I mean, you can have the fiercest rivalry with them, and they're just such amazing kids and amazing people, and you know, Tosh has that to a T, right? Like he's probably one of my favorite people that I've ever met.
Yeah.
Like he's just so nice. He's made of gold, man. And his teams are the same way.
His team reflects what my envision of Coach Toshak. Like he is that way, and you watch his team play, and I always say like there's such a joy to watching them play. They don't look like they're angry, you know, bitter,
100%.
like, you know, like, and you see it reflected out there, and that's that was.
I mean,
and I say that game, you're right. Like they just looked like they were having it was like, hey, this is great. We get 90 minutes to play soccer. Let's have a great time, you know.
And that kid Sabanda's unbelievable.
Oh my gosh,
he's incredible. So trying to, you know, you got to try and stop their whole team first of all, and then you got to stop that kid. It's just that's a wall you got to climb over and over again.
He's one of those special guys. He's one of those. Yeah. He's really special. Different level special. Yeah.
But Tosh is a guy that, like, you know, you want to beat him in the game that you're playing, and then you want him to win every other game, right? Like they're just there's you can hate St. Lawrence, but if you do, it's for all the right reasons, right? Like it's just because you can't find anything to really go at them about. They're great kids. They've got a great culture. You know, they have a great staff every year. It's an enjoyable game, right? You know, it's going to be really high level. It's never going to boil over. It's just a really good. I mean, we'll never take them off the schedule.
There was it's interesting about the game there, and I don't think I think I watched maybe 3 of their games, or, you know, 3 halves or something or other. You know, there are teams that have like this edge, like a chippiness edge to them. Like you could, like, you know, you just know, like, oh, if I'm gonna. They never struck me as a team like that. They always, to me, every time I watched them, they seem to be like, you're gonna come at us, you're gonna get physical, we're gonna play more soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they're going to beat you. And you don't see that very often, right? You see a lot of kids that sort of turn on a dime. Well, you want to get physical, I'll get physical with you. And then suddenly it becomes just a big brawl. And you don't get that sense from, or at least the experience that I have from watching them.
Yeah. I don't want to take away any of their competitive spirit, though, because
they
are competitive kids.
Competitive kids. Yeah.
I mean, they are very type A competitive kids, and they have that culture. But they have a distinct style and how they want to play and how they want to beat you.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not an eye for an eye style, right? Where it's like, all right, whatever the referee allows today, that's what we're doing, right? Like they don't have that. They have here's how we are going to be focused on winning the game. Here's how we're going to compete. And the kids buy into it, and they have that belief. So, I mean, it's just They're a high level team.
Yeah, I would say that game, the game they lost to Amherst, where Amherst went up 3-0 in the NCAA's, and they went
Mm-hmm.
up 3-0. And what did St. Lawrence do? They just got back to what they do,
Mm-hmm.
and that second half was dramatically different than the first. You know, it was like, wow,
100%.
there was something in their heads. It was like, let's not sort of get all. Let's just go back. Let's do what we do. Let's play the way we play. And I thought the second half was all them. Like I thought.
Yeah, for sure.
Good, you know,
and with Amherst, they have such a distinct culture too. I mean, you got to survive the first 20 minutes.
Oh,
if you don't survive the first 20,
you're out.
that's such a mountain to climb that
Yeah.
I felt like they did enough, in the next 60 minutes to win the game. But, again, against Amherst, and we fell into that same thing 2 years ago. You got to survive the first 20, and we didn't. And it was just too big of a hill to climb. So
Amherst I have a love-hate with them. Like they have that you're right. I'd say the first 15, 20 in both halves is almost like, not so much the second half because obviously legs and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they go right out of the gate for the jugular, and if you can't withstand it, I'd be curious to see their games, how many games they've won where they've scored at the beginning of those halves, and teams just can't catch up at that point because they're not ready. Nobody's sort of ready for that onslaught, right? Like it's just sort of like, oh my gosh.
I mean, even like the way that we're talking, right? Like you have to survive the first 20 minutes. Like that's out there. That's a reputation.
Yeah.
And so instantly every team that goes there is like, oh man, first 20 minutes, right? And they put you on edge a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a pragmatist. Like you can run your team however you want to run it. I mean, referees are in charge of rules. Coaches are in charge of their own teams, right? And you see how many goals you can score. And they do a great job at scoring goals and not conceding. So
yeah, very true. All right, Coach. I could keep doing this, but I got actually a call here in 10 minutes that I have to get on. That's part of my regular gig. So
all right, well, tell the president I said hi.
Yeah, right. Sure. The president of the local youth soccer league. Sure.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Do love talking to you. This is fantastic. And if I'm going to tell you this. If your wife ever wants to do one of these, I will gladly have her on. I would love to. That would be, because all we would do is be talking about you. So
it sounds great. Because look, she's an introvert. So if you can figure out how to get her on a podcast, you let me know. I'll put it on her plate and we'll see what she does with it.
All right, Coach. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it as always.
If you like this show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can also find me on anti-social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks. This is a message from my Chief Marketing Officer. I think this keeps him happy.